thank you so much for joining me. If you can tell us your name and your organization.
Sure. My name is Daryl Byers. I'm the CEO of Interise, and we train minority-owned companies and women-owned companies how to grow their business through a curriculum that we designed called the Streetwise MBA, and we've been doing that for 20 years.
Okay, Streetwise MBA.
Yes.
That's an interesting name. How did you come up with that name?
Well, I didn't come up with it, but how did we come up with that? Because, really, it's really your MBA when you think about it, but the real information that you need as a minority-owned company, as a black-owned company, how to really grow your business. These are things you're not going to learn in business school. These are items you're not going to learn at Harvard Business School. It's really being on the streets and knowing having your ear to the ground and knowing what's really going on. So that's how we developed the name, the Streetwise MBA.
Okay. We had today, we are both attending you are attending the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And today, earlier this morning, we had the National Economic Council Director, Leah Brenner. You were also a speaker on that panel. We, as you mentioned, the focus of the administration, the Biden-Harris administration, the president from the beginning, has been to empower the Black community, especially women. We see that in his administration. We see that also with the vice president, Kamala Harris, the first Black female and president. And we see that with the Justice Ketanji Brown also. He has put in a lot of effort. How is that translating into your industry?
So it's very important to our industry. So with the American Rescue Plan and with the infrastructure plan here in the United States, it's really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for states, cities, and the federal government to invest in minority-owned companies and give them the training they need to provide a level playing field so that they can grow their business, build generational wealth, and they could pass that on to their descendants over the years. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to invest in minority-owned companies and making sure they grow and making sure that there's a level playing field for them. So, we are very excited by the opportunity to help administer and deliver this investment to organizations.
So I talk about how you are administering that program, that investment to
Sure. So a very good example is what we're doing in Massachusetts, our home state. So as we look at the procurement process of many cities across the state and the large corporations in the state of Massachusetts, they're doing 1%, 2%, 3% of their work with minority-owned businesses, which is really, it's devastating because 13% of the businesses in Massachusetts are minority-owned. And if you really want to have a thriving economy, it means everyone must participate in this. So we're working, to make sure that these businesses are trained and ready to go to receive those big contracts from the state or any other large institutions around Massachusetts. But we're also, in some instances, working with the procurement staff so they can change their the way they operate with minority-owned businesses. So instead of just picking up the phone and calling the same person they've always called, they know they have a list of businesses who've been trained and are ready to go. We're wiping away the stigma that has been there for centuries that minority-owned companies aren't ready to take on these contracts. And right now, we're training them and proving that they are ready to take on these large contracts. So this is how we're using the money. We received $3 million in funding from the American Rescue Plan to implement this in the state of Massachusetts, and we're looking at doing this in other states across the country.
Okay, so right now, how many clients, if you can talk about that, how many clients do you have? Have you seen an increase in application for the program?
We're seeing a large number of as of companies applying for the program as they become aware of the program, because they really, in many instances, weren't aware of what was going on. But the hard part for us too is we can't take every company that applies, because we still have to find more funding so we can train these companies, because we only train up to 20 companies at a time in a specific city, because we find that's the best way for them to receive the information, implement the information, and take the information out and start growing their program. So our real need is more funding, because they take this course for completely free.
Okay.
They are not charged, where they would be charged at other
like if they
organizations.
go to an MBA program.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And not only that, one of the things we know is that peer-to-peer networking is one of the biggest benefits of taking this program. So they know they automatically have 10,000 other CEOs around the country who have taken this program that they can rely on through a platform we designed called Interise Connect, and take advantage of these opportunities. So it's a win-win.
Okay. We what you're saying, I have to, in recent months and actually weeks, we've seen an attack on diversity, equity, and inclusive program.
Yes.
And this is something, you are working with minority group. How is that affecting you, and how are you handling these challenges?
Well, a couple of things on that. I don't think people are really aware of the widespread impact that the affirmative action ruling is having across this country. So now we're seeing lawsuits against organizations that provide funding to minority-owned companies. They're essentially trying to wipe out any DEI initiatives around the country. Now, immediate impact, very little, but long-term, actually even short-term, because what they're trying to do is essentially get this in front of the Supreme Court again. So there will be a ruling on that. How this will affect us is there will be companies who will no longer be willing to make donations to us, because in many ways they would consider it illegal. We will never get federal funding if it's approved by the Supreme Court. We'll never get federal funding or state funding or city funding to provide these programs for minority-owned businesses. So we need to start realizing the impact of this right now, and really start educating the general public on what this means to have this really move forward, and to potentially lose this funding.
And it is, in a way, we can say this is another sort of attack on what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma years ago.
The Black Wall Street.
Black Wall Street.
It's very interesting, because those riots that happened in Tulsa, that actually happened in several places across the country. Greensboro had one, North Carolina, for example. And what people tend to forget, and what they assume, is that there was no skills in 1619 when the slaves came over from Africa. But in actuality, there was a thriving economy in Africa. And they had the wealthy, they had the middle class, and the low income. They had different types of industries, from the cocoa beans, from coffee, to produce, to gold, to everything. So there was a thriving economy in Africa. But when you come over here and you introduce that to slavery, all that was taken away. So we're still dealing with the effects of those decisions made over 300 years ago. And now there seems to be a push to say we've reached racial equality, which we haven't, because there's been systemic racism in this country since the beginning.
And it's still
here
ongoing.
every day. As we talked about earlier today, I was speaking about the median wealth in this country. Well, the median wealth of a white family in Boston is $247,000. The median wealth of a black family in Boston is $800. Now, how can you start a business on equal footing with that discrepancy in wealth? It's impossible. And as you look across the landscape across this country, it just repeats itself over and over and over again. So we must make effective change, because what we know, if we have equality in minority-owned businesses across the country, we will add jobs to the economy and we'll add money to the economy. So this benefits everyone.
Okay. You just talked about Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You told me while we were talking before yesterday that you just came back from Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you to talk about that experience and why you went to Ghana.
Yes, I went to Ghana because someone who had been through our program, first of all, took what he learned from our program and he started 3 businesses in Africa. One in Ghana, one in Nairobi, and I want to say the third one might have been Gambia. Could be wrong in that, but that's where he started the businesses. So he saw there's an opportunity there. And he had spoke to one of our instructors about possibly starting a program in there. So she spoke to me and convinced me that I should go over to Ghana and take a look and see what we need to do, if it was possible, to adapt our curriculum to the needs of the small businesses in Ghana. And that was the intent of me going over there. And I was happily surprised how easy it would be to adapt our curriculum to what's needed in Ghana. Now, what was interesting is what I came away with was women-owned businesses in Ghana. And I spoke to about 15 of those businesses while we were there. And the one thing I came away with, and I told them, is you have the same struggles and challenges as women-owned businesses in the United States. And they were shocked. I said, we don't have the racism. That's the one thing, but that you don't have the access to capital. There's an assumption because you're a woman that you don't have the intelligence to start and grow your business, and we know that's not true. So our curriculum would be easily adaptable with changes. We thought we might be able to deliver it online, but we realized quickly that we have to have someone over there locally that we could train to deliver the program in person there. And now for us, it's all about raising the funds to deliver the program over in Ghana, which I'm confident we will do, because as we know, the U.S. government is investing funds in Africa at this time. Across Africa. Well, Vice President Harris, I found out, was in Ghana in June.
Yeah, no, she was March.
March?
Late March to April.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, she was, she talked about more funds for Ghana in the coming year. We like to have access to some of the funds. I looked at some of the big institutions that are here in Massachusetts or here in the United States, and who are doing, in Ghana. And what was surprising to me is some American universities. One that I used to work with, UMass Boston, and their work in Ghana. So we have a tremendous opportunity here to really merge those all those attributes and bring them together to begin a program in Africa. And once we deliver it in Ghana, there's no reason why we can't deliver in other places across Africa.
Okay, I mean, just listening to you, because our publication focus, as I mentioned to you, placed Africa at the center of the global economy. Mm-hmm. And many people, when I talk to people, African Americans, the idea of what Africa is so off the record because of what they've had in the media, of what they see, of what they read. And people, we've had quite a bit of celebrities that have traveled, that are now traveling to Ghana, to Rwanda, and they are pleasantly surprised.
Correct.
Just as you said, pleasantly surprised about the business opportunity, about the cultural activities, the entertainment industry. I mean, this is sort of a secret that a lot of investors I've known for quite a while, and they've made billions of money investing on the continent, and we don't know about that. You know,
Yeah.
it's sort of like we've been left behind, and what you're doing, what your organization will be able to do through this program is connect Africa and Africans with the African in the diaspora here. And that's one thing that the administration also is working on. They recently launched the Presidential Advisory Board for the African diaspora to sort of do this engagement, promote collaboration, people-to-people diplomacy, as well as trade and commercial interests between the U.S. and Africa. It's not about focusing on China or Russia competition, but it is about strengthening the relationship that is already there.
Well, you know, it's interesting. First of all, I think I've been lucky in the sense that I've had friends and family that have traveled to Africa and came back, and you know, just how much they enjoy being there and opened their eyes, if you will. But also, I've been reading a lot, and you know, the economic opportunity, as many people have said, that will happen. I mean, the biggest growth economically coming up is in Africa. So why wouldn't you invest in that? But also, the companies have been taken advantage of. So there, the week before I left, there was a wonderful program on that talked about the chocolate and how the most expensive chocolate in the world, but it all starts in Ghana with the cocoa beans. But how much of that revenue is actually flowing back to the companies who are providing those cocoa beans, or the child labor they're using? It was just extraordinary to me that that was going on. But also that there was companies or organizations now that are trying to change that. And I think there was one chocolate called 57 chocolate about the year of independence, named after the year of independence that Ghana gained. And I just thought, you know, I looked everywhere for that chocolate. I wanted that chocolate. I still want that chocolate. I wasn't able to find it. But, you know, the economic opportunity that is available there is tremendous. And anyone who, any company who isn't seeing that or willing to invest in that, they're going to miss the boat.
Yeah.
And they're going to be the last ones, and they're going to be, why didn't we see that before?
And it's also a great opportunity for Black Americans to reconnect.
Exactly. And, you know, I did the Ancestry.com and found out that the majority of my ancestry was from Western Africa. So when I landed in Ghana, I mean, literally when the plane touched down, I felt that I was home. And that was just, it was a very emotional moment for me. And to get off the plane and walk around, I felt like, wow, I'm amongst family.
Yeah.
Right now. And it was just an emotional journey that I can't wait to go back and hopefully take the rest of my family one day.
I mean, that's what people often say, like, once you go to Africa, it's sort of like you want to be there. You want to be there. You want to be a part of it. You want to connect with the culture. You try to bring as much of that culture back with you. And I have my kente cloths that I produced for my family and some friends, and jewelry, and it was just an amazing experience. But I look at that kente cloth I have every day in my office, and it's just always a reminder of where I came from. Okay. So thank you for talking about that and what you're doing to connect with the continent in terms of business. So, you know, what can the administration do right now? We have an election year that is coming up, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are worried. You know, like people are optimistic, but also very concerned. And if you can talk about that aspect, are you concerned about the upcoming election, and what can the administration do more to support minority-owned business? For example, the president is traveling to North Carolina today. And one aspect that they have done is provide affordable broadband for, internet speed for especially the minority group. As we know, during the pandemic, a lot of low-income students were affected.
Correct.
And also last week, the one industry or sector that is also seeing a boom, business boom, is the space industry. There's a lot of small businesses that are putting in application. They're seeing growth in that industry. And those are areas that Black Americans often don't look into. So what are you doing with your company to push into those sectors that often the doors are closed?
Yeah, so overall, I think the administration has done a very good job over the last 4 years of funding, providing opportunities for minority-owned businesses, from the PPP loans to the EIDL loans to the work that the SBA is doing with businesses. Doesn't mean that there isn't room for
growth.
So I think, so much of this money goes straight towards companies without giving them the tools to succeed. So I think they could be a little bit better about providing technical assistance, the know-how for these companies to use the money so that they can survive and grow and build resiliency as they use the money. I think the rural area is very important. People forget sometimes how many Black families live in rural areas. So the fact that you can provide broadband to them so that we can deliver this course online, that they have the availability, because they're spread out, so we don't have the opportunity to go and bring them together as a group. So that would be very important. I would like to see the administration get very specific about what industries that you can invest in and grow in. And one of those is the green economy. There's a lot of minorities companies out there who are now jumping into the green economy and technology. And people just aren't aware of those organizations. So they need to work with organizations like ours to discover who they are and really start funding them. And really let companies know, or cities and towns know, rural and urban areas, that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with the infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to use these funds to give money to expand access to the tools needed by minority-owned businesses to grow. So, this won't happen again for a generation. So we need to take advantage of it now. So there need to be a sense of urgency. I don't feel that sense of urgency that this needs to happen now. And as you mentioned, the challenges that may come before us in the next 2 or 3 years, there could be a ruling by the Supreme Court that funding this money or targeting this money for minority-owned companies is illegal. So we have to act now.
So my last question to you to wrap this up, what gives you hope?
I recently, last weekend, I did a presentation at a local church for Martin Luther King weekend. And I called it The Letters from a Birmingham Jail Revisited. He wrote that in 1963, 8 days in a jail cell, cramped jail cell, writing on the edges of a newspaper and scrap paper before someone sneaked in a pad of paper to him. It really is his manifesto for having hope. And to me, what the Black community faced in 1963, that was 4 months before the March on Washington, the Civil Rights Bill hadn't been passed yet, and some people were giving up. And there was one man who really sat there and really inspired us not to give up. Hope. That's the key word, hope. Never lose hope. So I look back at that and why things in many ways have been going backwards toward that time. It's still not as bad as things were at that time. So I have hope. I have hope that people will realize that things need to move in a certain direction. They wanted to move in a certain direction, and we have to be more vigilant about educating them about what's needed to make sure that all Americans have an equal opportunity in this economy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.